Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Bob Mendelsohn, and this is the Bob's Your Uncle podcast. Today we meet again Josh Gaddis from Alabama, who is now adding author to his growing resume. You'll want to hear what he has to say. You can now comment to us right there wherever you get your podcasts, or you can write to us on email. I want to hear what matters to you, what's bothering you, what's triggering your joy. Let's see where the Spirit leads us. Wherever you are just now, whether you're out for your evening constitutional, or you're here in Australia, or back in the United States with friends, or all by yourself with your headset on, hey, wherever you are, thanks for joining us these 18 minutes. Of note, the opinions are strictly my own and those of my guests.
But I do know that I love you, and I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be.
On this date in history, the 27th of August in 1859, Edwin Drake struck oil while drilling in Titusville, Pennsylvania, becoming the first driller of a productive oil well in the United States. In 1776, during the American Revolution, British forces under General William Howe defeated George Washington and the American Army in the Battle of Long Island. And on the 27th of August in 1908, Sir Donald Bradman was born in Cootamundra, New South Wales, Australia, one of the greatest run scorers in the history of the game of cricket, often judged the greatest player of the 20th century, and that's the historical marker of the week.
I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be.
Josh Gaddis, thanks for joining me on the Bob's Your Uncle podcast once more. This is great. Where is home for you usually?
That is Gadsden, Alabama. So North Alabama, just north of Birmingham.
And you have been changing careers. There's a new something on the horizon. What happened?
Well, I would say maybe not so much careers, but hobby maybe. I was working on podcasting probably around this time last year when I joined your call, and life got in the way, and as the hotels needed more and more support, and the additional responsibilities that came with that, and also more hotels, I kind of had to get away from it. They gave me a couple of extra hotels in Kentucky. So at one point in time, I had 8 hotels that I was overseeing, and trying to put together a thoughtful and useful podcast became increasingly difficult. So I started to really focus on this novel that I've been working on. It started about 2 years ago, and it's finally in the final stages.
Now, wait a minute. When you don't have time because of an increased workload, how in the world? Well, let me back up. What inspired your writing? What inspired you to become an author?
Well, I will say it's something that's kind of always been burning in my soul a little bit. But my grandmother passed away in July of 2022. Someone that I wouldn't say raised me, because I had a loving family, father, mother, grew up with them, but there was that special bond between her only grandson. I lived with her for probably, gosh, 15 years, here and there, after some missteps with my career, and at the birth of my daughter, and back in 2005. So just overall, lived with her for a really long time. She and I were very close. And once she passed, I decided that, hey, now's the time to really start this process of putting into words the things that maybe I couldn't say. Um,
Just like J.D. Vance's Hillbilly Elegy.
I do stress that there's always that theme, that tone that I wanted to put across, that the hero, the unsung hero, if you will, of the novel and my life itself would be my grandmother. And
Did you make her the protagonist? Is it told from her side or is it from your side? Is it even autobiographical?
well, I would say it's told from my point of view. It starts out with me at 5 years old. So that would have been Alabama, 1989. And as I progressed through it, I thought to myself, it really needs to be as close to reality as possible. She is this the one of the central characters of the novel. So basically we have three. And in the novel you have Ethan, which is me, Margaret, who is my grandmother, and Grace, who is my uh, daughter. A lot of it focuses on my struggles, with parenting, with adulthood, with trying to um, navigate life with these questions that were constantly burning inside me, and how hiding those things about myself really um, informed a lot of the decisions that I made, whether they were, proper or poor in the grand scheme of things. But through it all, I wanted to focus on that even though I had my share of issues, um, my grandmother was always there, the guiding light, the moral compass, if you will.
Sure.
And then also, as the novel goes on, how I've been able to navigate the world without her.
She handed the baton over to you. Did you call her Mama like JD called his grandmother?
So her name is actually Maddie Bell. So we called her Granny Bell. So that was everybody. I mean, even the friends that I had growing up, my older sister's friends, when we found ourselves at her house, swimming in her pool or having some kind of party, everybody called her Granny Bell. It didn't matter if you were family or not.
Does this have a universal appeal, you think? I mean, you've got 40 years ago when you're a kid in Alabama, but people are going to be reading this from California and Brussels. Do you think folks who are in their 30s and even 40s are going to remember some of your moments, not having your exact moment, but having the same feelings or frustrations or joys? Does this have a universal message?
I think so. I mean, when you look at particular themes of, family dynamics and unconditional love and, self-discovery and, trying to, you know, as I put in the novel at one point, live authentically. I think that would resonate with a wide audience of how they're trying to navigate their own lives, and perhaps they will see their own struggles in my story, or maybe they have a family member or a friend that's going through something similar. But at the end of the day, I hope that they'll be able to find echoes of their journey in the book and maybe enlighten them some and and maybe even learn from the mistakes that I made throughout this journey.
You went through grief with your grandmother's passing, and people are going to experience grief one way or another. And so I think if you voice it and they hear it, it might give them hope, which I think is always useful. Have you shared this novel in whatever form it's currently almost ready to produce? Have you shared it with your 19-year-old daughter?
So we haven't, not the full text. She's working with me, actually helping me on a few things with the Facebook page that I've made to kind of help get the word out that publishing is on the horizon. I've shared with her some of the some excerpts from the book and kind of gave her, the overall view and the letter from the author that I shared with you. I shared that with her and just so that she can kind of see the themes that would be represented in the book.
What's the name of the book?
The book is actually called Finding Grace. As I was trying to put together the title of it, I thought, what would be fitting? And I was thinking about, my daughter whose name is Hannah, she's Grace in the novel. So the title kind of has a double meaning,
Well,
of
her name,
finding.
Hannah, is the Hebrew word for grace.
Okay. Well, it's kind of, I'm like I'm finding grace in my own life as I continue this self-discovery and accepting of the person that I am. So I found my own grace in that.
Well, I'm hopeful that everyone finds grace from heaven for them in their walks, or as you called it, their journey. I think that's a beautiful way to live. What's next for you once this gets published, which should happen very, very soon, right? It's going to be on Amazon next week.
My plan is for it to be available to be pre-ordered on Amazon next week. I just got the formatting back from the editor yesterday, and I really like the format. I did see a couple of things that I wanted to enhance as I was going through. I mean, of course, honestly, as an author or writer, if you don't eventually say this is it, you'll never publish it or never get it done. So, but I did notice in my last review that there were a couple of things that I need to do. For example, a little bit later on in the book, two characters kind of take a bigger role in my life, or more specifically, Grace's life, which would be my older sister and my aunt, which is on my grandmother's side, so my grandmother's daughter. Um, so I'm now looking for ways to kind of bring them into the story earlier
Hmm.
because as I was reading it, I was like, it just seems like these people just appeared, like, there's
Right.
no mention of them before, but now, Grace is living with Angie and, Margaret has moved in with Linda, and so I know it has people wondering, well, who are these people?
No wonder Jeffrey Archer says he edits his books at least 50 times, 50 rewrites, probably in the same way you're going through. Oh, we need to make this character more rise up earlier. Well, it's an adventure, and I'm so happy for you, Josh, to be able to do this. And I'm looking forward not only to reading it, but continuing to, well, I want to watch what's next. I mean, another novel in the works. You already got ideas, maybe?
Yes, so I have been brainstorming for another novel. This one was a deeply personal novel. So I'm thinking to kind of be a little bit more lighthearted in the next effort to maybe show my more maybe adventurous and imaginative side versus
Mm.
this is my life and I'm sharing it with the world.
Watch for the next novel called Sweet Home Alabama, Part Two.
Absolutely. And
That's
I would
great.
just say, uh, hoping to get it, ready for pre-order next week. But in the meantime, if anyone wants to follow our journey, we're Finding Grace on Facebook. So
Is that the
find
name of the page?
that's the
Finding
name of the
Grace?
page. Finding
Oh,
Grace.
fantastic. I'll put that in the notes, and I'll encourage all my listeners worldwide to stay with you and watch, and may they find grace as well. Thank you for sharing your story. I look forward to reading it, broadcasting it, and having you back so we can find out what's next with Josh Gaddis.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate being back, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this unfolds.
Hey, I don't know if you saw it this week. The Buzzsprout, which is the host of our Bob's Your Uncle podcast, sent me a note and said that we hit 5,000 downloads on the program, and I'm just fascinated. That's fantastic news to me. I don't know against what to compare that. Like, does Larry and do Susie, do they have 5,000 a day? I don't know. But each of you who has been listening and who is listening even currently, thank you for making the Bob's Your Uncle podcast so noticed globally. And although I mentioned Australia and I mentioned the United States, every week on the podcast, we read from the #1 bestseller of all time. That's the Bible, of course. And today is no different. From Hebrews chapter 4, let us draw near with confidence to the throne of grace, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. You think about all this, why don't you write me, bobmendo@aol.com? Let me hear what you have to say as you find grace. Until next week then, when things seem bleak or uncertain, look up to God. He's in his heaven, and Bob's your uncle. Shalom.